The way we build software, well, it feels like it's really on the edge of something huge, a big change.
Oh, definitely. We're talking about intelligence, not just being in the software, but actually building it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sounds almost sci-fi, but you've got tech leaders, Mark Zuckerberg, Satya Nadella, saying this is happening now.
That's right. And welcome, everyone, to this deep dive. We're going to unpack a really compelling discussion from LeMicon 2025.
That's the big AI conference.
Yep. And this chat between Zuckerberg from Meta and Nadella from Microsoft, it gives us a fascinating look into AI in coding right now and where it's heading. Matthew Berman's video on Zuck's claim about self-improving AI really highlighted some key points.
Okay, so two giants of the industry sharing their thoughts. Our mission today, then, is to dig into those insights, understand what they're really saying about AI writing code, especially this idea of self-improving AI. What does that even mean for software?
Yeah, we need to look at what's actually happening now, with AI code assistants at Microsoft and Meta. Then there's this idea of AI agents doing the development work.
Agents, right.
And, of course, the big picture, the long-term implications for how we even think about creating and using software. It could all change.
Okay, let's kick things off then. Satya Nadella, Microsoft. He actually gave some numbers, didn't he, about AI writing code there?
He did, and it was pretty interesting. He estimated for some projects maybe 20 to 30% of the code is now AI generated.
20 to 30%. That's significant.
It is, but he was quick to point out it really depends on the language. Python. Much higher contribution. Why? Just loads more open source training data available.
Right. More data, better AI. That tracks.
Compared to something like C++, A, less open data out there so that the AI isn't quite as effective yet.
And he also made a distinction, didn't he, between AI just like finishing your line of code versus AI doing bigger chunks of work.
Exactly. Code completion, that's pretty common now, where the AI suggests the next bit as you type. But the more agentic coding, where the AI takes a task and runs with it, builds a whole feature maybe.
Yeah.
That's apparently more common in what they call greenfield projects, starting completely from scratch.
Okay, but hang on. Matthew Berman, in his analysis, he kind of pushed back on that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Especially for a huge company like Microsoft.
He did, and it's a really important point.
Yeah.
Inside Microsoft, with all its existing systems, that massive legacy code base, maybe there aren't that many pure greenfield opportunities.
Right. It's not like starting fresh every day.
For startups or any company building something totally new, they don't have those constraints. They can, design their whole development process around AI from day one. That's a huge advantage.
And it's not just writing code from scratch. Microsoft is using AI quite a bit for code reviews too, apparently.
Yeah, Nadella specifically mentioned that. Using AI agents for code reviews. And it makes sense, right? Reviewing often means checking specific changes against known patterns, best practices. It's a task AI is getting pretty good at.
Okay, let's switch gears. Meta. Mark Zuckerberg. He didn't give percentages, but his focus seemed a bit different.
Yeah, it felt more strategic, maybe.
Yes.
He talked about using AI in very specific contained areas, like optimizing the algorithms for their feed or for ads ranking.
Areas with tons of data and clear goals.
Exactly. Perfect places to let AI experiment and, fine-tune things for better performance.
But the bit that got the headlines, the stunning claim, as Berman put it, was Zuckerberg talking about building AI engineers to improve Llama itself.
Yeah.
What's the big deal there? Why is that so, stunning?
Okay, so think about it. An AI whose job it is to make AI better, to do the research, to tweak the architecture, improve how it learns.
Okay.
You create this potential for a loop. The AI gets better at improving itself, so the next improvement is faster, maybe bigger. And then the one after that.
It snowballs.
Exactly. It's like a snowball effect, potentially leading to this exponential growth in AI capability. That's the core of this whole intelligence explosion idea. It could accelerate beyond what humans can directly manage.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is a different level. So not just AI helping humans code, but AI fundamentally pushing AI development itself.
Right. A potential paradigm shift.
They also talked about these software engineering agents. What are we picturing here? AI developers?
Sort of. Imagine AI programs specifically designed to do software tasks. At first, probably things with really clear rules and measurable success.
Like what?
Like optimizing low-level kernel code for speed, or automatically finding and fixing security holes. Stuff like that. Not necessarily, designing brand new software architectures, at least not initially.
And did Zuck and Nadella see eye to eye on how fast this would happen?
Zuckerberg seemed maybe a bit more bullish on how quickly these agents could tackle more complex things. Nadella sounded perhaps a bit more focused on the immediate integrations.
Which kind of makes sense, given their companies, right? Microsoft has all these developer tools already.
Exactly. So their focus is likely on how AI fits into those existing workflows, augmenting what developers already do. Makes sense for them.
Whereas Meta, with Llama, they're building this foundational AI, but also using it internally to push their own boundaries first.
Precisely. Meta's internal efforts seem heavily focused on advancing their own AI models, which then feeds back into Llama for broader use, different immediate priorities maybe.
But this whole shift towards agents, it must mean we need to rethink our tools, our whole development setup. It's not just adding an AI button to our current IDEs, is it?
No, definitely not. It's what Nadella called a relitigation of the whole tech stack. If AI is doing a lot of the building, how do these agents collaborate? How do they manage code versions? How do they even talk to each other?
Right. Like, what does a GitHub repo look like if you have dozens, maybe hundreds, of AI agents all working on the code at once?
It's a fundamental shift. Forget human teams checking code in and out. You might have this dynamic swarm of agents constantly refining a single code base. It's a different way of thinking about software creation.
So what does this mean for, say, someone learning to code now, or developers early in their career, if AI is doing more coding?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The conversation suggested that, yeah, understanding code and systems thinking, still vital, but maybe the most important skill becomes interacting with these AI agents, guiding them, orchestrating them.
So every engineer becomes more like a tech lead for a team of AI.
Potentially, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Managing the AI collaborators, setting the direction, validating the output, a different kind of role.
It also felt like they were hinting at AI blurring the lines between, documents, apps, websites.
Yeah, this idea that you could just state your goal, your intent in plain language, and the AI generates the thing you need. A living artifact, maybe, that adapts, not necessarily a static app or website as we know them now.
The old boundaries between Word, Excel, PowerPoint, maybe they just dissolve conceptually.
Could be. If the AI understands the underlying task and data, the presentation layer becomes much more fluid.
And Zuckerberg took it even further, didn't he? Suggesting an AI agent could sit between us and the actual data, making traditional software applications less necessary.
That was pretty radical, yeah. The AI becomes the main interface to the ground truth information. It figures out how to get what you need and present it without you needing to open 10 different specific programs.
A very different interaction model.
Completely. Less focus on discrete tools, more on seamless, agent-driven access to information and capabilities.
Okay, all this innovation sounds great, but there's always the economic angle.
Mm-hmm.
Nadella really tied this AI push to driving GDP growth, right?
He did. He talked about AI as potentially being a new factor of production, like land, labor, capital. AI could be the next big driver of productivity growth across the board.
Essential for tackling big global challenges, too, he mentioned, like health, climate.
Exactly. The idea is we need this kind of step change in productivity to make progress on those huge problems.
He used an analogy, didn't he, about electricity?
Yeah, that was interesting. He says, look, when electricity came along, it took decades for businesses to really get the full benefit. You couldn't just swap steam engines for electric motors and call it a day.
You got to redesign the whole factory floor.
Precisely. You had to fundamentally rethink workflows, management, everything. And he suggested we're kind of in that phase with AI now, just plugging it into old processes. The horseless carriage approach won't cut it.
We need systemic changes to unlock the real potential.
That was his point. And this ties back to that relitigation of the tech stack. Big shifts force you to rebuild foundations.
New infrastructure, new tools.
Right. Just like the internet needed a whole different infrastructure than mainframes, AI needs its own optimized stack. Compute, storage, networking, everything's being reevaluated.
And we're starting to see AI native tools pop up, not just AI bolted onto old IDEs.
Yeah, tools like Cursor, Replit, Windsurf. They're being built around AI assistants from the ground up. It's a different philosophy than just adding features to existing environments.
Now, there's this interesting economic idea, Jevons paradox. How does that fit into the AI picture?
Ah, right. So the paradox is basically when using a resource becomes more efficient, you don't necessarily use less of it. You might actually use more because it's cheaper and opens up new possibilities.
So as AI gets cheaper and better.
We'll likely see an explosion in its use. The falling cost and rising capability means we'll find vastly more ways to apply it. Consumption goes up, not down.
And this is happening fast because improvements are happening everywhere at once, right?
Yeah.
Chips, software, the AI models themselves.
Exactly. It's not just one thing improving, it's the whole stack. Better chips, better frameworks like PyTorch or TensorFlow, better model architectures, it all compounds.
Leading to big jumps in capability and drops in cost.
Which, Nadella argued, makes it possible to build really sophisticated, deep applications on top of these powerful foundation models.
And that application layer, maybe that's where the biggest untapped opportunity is, beyond just building the core AI.
Quite possibly. There's been so much focus on the models themselves, the infrastructure, but how do we actually deliver AI value to users, to businesses? That application layer is still, relatively less explored.
We're seeing things like agent frameworks starting to emerge and multi-model approaches.
Yeah, the idea that you might use several specialized AI models together for a complex task, which then brings up the need for standards, right? How do these different agents or models talk to each other effectively? Lots of work still to do there.
Okay, one other classic debate. Open source versus closed source AI. What were their takes?
Well, Nadella, representing Microsoft, basically said you need both. To meet customer needs, you need powerful closed models, but also open models that enterprises can, take, fine-tune, maybe even own for specific purposes or IP reasons.
Control and customization for enterprise.
Right, that's a big demand, he highlighted.
But Matthew Berman's analysis suggested maybe businesses aren't rushing to fine-tune models just yet, that something else is more common.
Yeah, he pointed out that retrieval augmented generation, or R, seems to be the more immediate focus for many.
Remind us what ARG is.
It's where you give the AI model relevant information, specific context from your own documents or data, right when you ask it a question. It's often simpler and cheaper than retraining or fine-tuning the whole model.
So a more pragmatic approach for many right now.
Seems that way for a lot of current use cases, yeah.
Okay, let's bring it back to developer productivity. We talked about tools like GitHub Copilot evolving.
Right. It started with code completion, then added chat features, and now it's moving towards more agent-like capabilities, doing bigger tasks within the developer's workflow.
And the key is making it seamless, right? Integrating it directly where developers already work.
Absolutely critical. It has to fit into the flow, not disrupt it. That's been key to Copilot's adoption.
But the really exciting, maybe disruptive part is thinking about that greenfield development again, where AI isn't just assisting, it's potentially the primary author.
Yeah, imagine an IDE that's designed primarily for AI agents, not humans. What does code even look like then? If it's mostly written and read by machines, does it need to be human readable in the same way?
Could be fundamentally different.
Could be. It really opens up some mind-bending possibilities about the future nature of code itself.
And the scale is already becoming just huge. You mentioned Cursor claiming nearly 1 billion lines of accepted AI code per day.
Per day, yeah. That number just shows the exponential curve we're on. AI is generating a vast amount of code already.
And if you combine that with natural language interfaces, does that mean potentially billions more people could effectively write code without learning traditional programming languages?
That's the potential, isn't it? Democratizing creation.
Yeah.
If you can describe what you want in plain English and an AI can help build it, that lowers the barrier to entry dramatically.
So wrapping this up, it feels clear. AI isn't just another tool for developers. It's becoming fundamental.
Yeah, it's weaving itself into the entire life cycle. How we conceive ideas, how we write the code, how we test and maintain it. We're seeing more AI assistants, these emerging agents, and yeah, a real shift in the skills developers will need.
Being able to work with the AI.
Exactly. And that Zuckerberg claim about self-improving AI, it just adds this layer of potential acceleration over the whole thing. The pace of change could itself speed up.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. In a world where AI might be the main author of software, what does software even mean? What are its defining traits?
And where does human creativity fit in? How do we solve problems in that new landscape?
And maybe most importantly for you listening now, for the learner, what skills, what ways of thinking should you be focusing on today to really thrive in that future? It's coming fast.
It really is. The speed is incredible, and the opportunities for building new things, for innovating in this space, they're just immense right now.